Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe. And how are you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. I think you're about to get a lot better because we're going to talk DC round robin.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay. Since last we chatted about this, one of our favorite topics,
Yep.
we've seen the conclusion to the first and the second round,
Mm-hmm.
and now basically what it says here is for some reason to let it kind of sink in, they're going to pause for a week and a half to May 5th. And then they need to prepare. It says they need this week and a half to kind of prepare for the third round. But are you surprised at all by the books that got here that made it into this third round?
I guess. I guess a little bit. It seemed like we had another situation. I think where Zatanna won on Twitter, and then Green Lanterns actually won because Instagram votes.
Right.
So that was a little surprising. I think a lot of people were expecting Zatanna to go up against Robbins. I know there were a lot of people talking about interested in Zatanna. I mean,
Yep.
Lobo Animal Man had absolutely no chance against Robbins.
Right.
I believe Suicide Squad and Superman and Lois Ignition were also very neck and neck.
That seemed like it would be. Yeah.
And Suicide Squad just keeps. I guess it's kind of consistent with the theme of Suicide Squad. They just keep barely making it to the to the next round, and then
it seems like well, I mean, and it's going to, of course, going to benefit from all the media hype right now that we've got a trailer and we've got a show. I mean, so it makes sense that's picking up. But how about Blue Beetle was up against Jesse Quick? Was that any surprise to you there?
I don't know. I wouldn't say I was surprised. I personally voted for Blue Beetle, but I wasn't sure where that was going to go because Jesse Quick, it pretty handedly won the first round. That was one of those lopsided, it felt like 70-30 kind of votes, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. And they also announced the creative teams. And, that was with Stephanie Phillips, who's currently on the Harley Quinn.
Right.
And wrote the Harley Quinn Future State. So people were like, you're dealing with a known quantity when it comes to comics. Josh Trujillo's writing Blue Beetle. And I know Josh. I've worked with Josh before. I like Josh a lot, but I don't think Josh is a known quantity with Big Two stuff, really. No, he's writing the gay Cap that fights for the unhoused.
Right. The backup story.
I think. The backup story. I don't know how they're doing it, if it's technically co-writing with Chris Cantwell or not, but either way, he's working on that, and most of his stuff has been sort of in the indie scene, and he's also worked in video games and things like that. But it was surprising to see how Blue Beetle moved on. I'm happy it did, but that. This makes you think all sorts of things because it's like, well, now you're basically setting up a situation where now you're seeing people vote for an unknown quantity over a person you've actively been pushing. What does that say about what you're doing?
Well, what strikes me here is if we're looking at the final four, we've got a Green Lantern's title, we've got a Robin's title, we've got Blue Beetle, and we have Suicide Squad. The thing that all four of these titles have in common is that they all have a second series, or there's another series. There already is a Green Lantern's book that DC is putting out. There's obviously multiple Robins and Batman stories. There is another Suicide Squad book, and they also announced in the last week that we're getting Blue Beetle Booster Gold in a series. So all these books have additional books.
And there is the Robin book that's
right.
With Gleb Melnikoff. Gleb Melnikoff, I think, is illustrating that one.
Yes,
it's about the Damien book.
That's right. John Byrne covers on that one. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
But he was glad to do him here. So. Yeah. It's very interesting. And one of the other things that I can't quite get over in this situation is I don't know if anyone remembers there was this book in the first round, JLQ. It was Justice League Queer.
I don't remember that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody really must have talked about that though.
I don't think anyone really touched on it, but
Yeah.
they were giving people like the way Twitter was reacting.
Stupidly.
Yeah, it was a vote for like JLQ is your only chance at queer representation in this round robin to get a 6-issue miniseries when DC has quite a few queer offerings, including the DC Pride #1 anthology coming out in June.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. That is how it was billed.
And it turns out that in our top 4 here,
yeah,
half the writers are openly queer.
So turns out, and did we ever find out who was doing the JLQ book?
I think that was Andrew Wheeler, who I believe is in the DC Pride #1 anthology. Right. I forget who the artist is, but Sina Grace and Josh Trujillo are both queer.
And it's guaranteed one of those is getting into the final, isn't it? Well, no, I guess not. Sorry, they both could lose. So they're Green Lanterns is going up against Robins, Blue Beetle going up against Suicide Squad 7.
Yeah.
It actually kind of feels, I mean, if you're a predicting man, I would put money on Robins and Suicide Squad being our final 2.
Yeah, but again, the fact that these 2 made it this far, and there is still a chance that one of them could eke out a win. I think Blue Beetle, especially now with the Blue Beetle Booster Gold announcement, maybe
that helps.
That could help, and also the fact that Green Lanterns beat Zatanna. They both. This seems like a wild card territory, and like you, if I had to put money down, it would be on Robins. But this is fluctuating in a way where it feels like it could be anyone's game.
I mean, I personally would prefer the Green Lanterns book over Robins. The pitch and kind of the premise of that sounded better to me, and I think I would rather have the Blue Beetle book than another Suicide Squad book personally. But
yeah.
But we'll see how it all works out. But okay, back to your point. Your point was basically that Twitter, being Twitter, decided to go all in on to support the gay community. We have to support JLQ, but meanwhile, there were multiple creators involved in this. And does it strike you as weird that rather than support a actual human being, a real person who's going to write a career and put something out, that the attention needs to be focused on fictional characters in an awkward situation?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we also know T. Franklin was another creator who was doing something, who was openly bi. So that means 4 of the 16 writers at the beginning were queer.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to do the, math in my head here. What is that? 25%?
Yeah. Quarter. Yeah.
A solid quarter, which is a larger percentage of writers who are openly queer in this than the queer community as a whole, population wise. So I mean, that's working
in comics for the big 2 or in the population. Either way, you've got a healthy representation. Feels like that might have been the angle to if you're wanting to kind of push on we're trying to be more progressive, and that felt like would be a better angle to pursue.
Yeah, and these are also queer people of color. I mean, T. Franklin, Sina Grace, possibly Josh Trujillo. I'm trying to think, but it's very weird that they did this in this way. Where,
well, the first round it was all mystery. They were hiding the creators, and I never quite understood. I mean, the reason they gave is that we wanted the focus to be on the book. But that seems like a really stupid reason, because it's the creator who's going to imagine this book, who's going to bring something to life. That seemed like a needlessly dumb way to do it.
Yeah, I do not for the life of me understand it. I can't imagine the creators who lost appreciating that. I can't imagine the editors who lost that with properties in that first round are happy because some of those creative teams, like again, I mean, there's no way this is the case, but it is funny to think about. Like, oh wow, we were going to have our first like Grant Morrison, Jim Lee collaboration, but no one wanted the Etta Candy book.
Yeah, well, or Grant Morrison was going to return for Night Runner to kind of flesh out more of the Batman Incorporated world, but unfortunately, Blue Beetle graduation day, just beat it out. Yeah, no, it all feels very strange. So okay, so we've got this, these 4 titles. We now have a pause for no apparent reason into the 5th. And then we're going to have another pause to the final. DC did go on, if it wasn't entirely clear that this whole thing is strange and maybe not well thought through, they wanted to make sure they addressed the fact that people were angry that Justice League Queer didn't win. They listed as an early fan favorite, eliminated in the first round, rather than point out the fact, as you did, that multiple creators in these pitches were queer. They instead said that the volume of votes and personal notes have been shared online means that we want to see a pitch succeed anyway. So stay tuned about where you might see GLQ appear in the future. We're listening, but apparently not listening very well.
No, and also, who's to say once they do put that book together that it is going to sell? I mean, if that's the whole hook is just the title, what are we doing here?
I mean, I have to assume this is going to be the backup story that replaces Justice League Dark in Justice League at some point, and they kind of cram it in there. So, yay! But
sure.
It's all very odd. But okay, so we're getting a 6-issue miniseries out of this. It'll be one of these titles here in the final 4. All right, well, if you're predicting which one's going to bring it home, do you think? In the end, who wins?
Here's the thing. I do think it's going to be really hard to beat Robbins, especially since we know it's Tim Seeley and he's a known quantity who's dealt with these characters before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine it not being Robbins if I had to guess right now. But again, it's like, in the service of what?
Yeah.
What is this? What are we doing? Because the problem right now isn't that DC's problem isn't a lack of content.
Right.
There are far too many. I would argue there are way too many announcements constantly, and every time I, go on Twitter or go online, it seems like there's another DC book announced.
There's an I mean, you're not wrong. They're putting out, because I was tracking this down, they're putting out a minimum of 3 to 4 announcements a week right now. Yeah. And a lot of these are short term, they're limited series. That's why we're just getting a ton of them. But they are announcing books constantly. I don't know how much of it's sticking. I mean,
none of it's sticking. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are in comics who are unable to follow the announcements. They have no idea what's coming because it's inundated, and eventually you just shut down because you're like, way too much.
I provided a list, the running list of the books that have been announced to several creators at DC because they were curious what had been announced. That seems broken.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. It feels like the problem that the big two in general have had. It's not fair to just pick on DC here.
Oh yes, Marvel. Marvel's completely innocent of this. Their books are all very
but it's very much like kind of like Hydra. Chop off one of their heads, 2 more grow in their place. It's like cancel one book and two more grow in its place.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
terrible.
thought, I thought we were promised fewer books.
I thought we were promised a cleaner, more straightforward line you could understand. So which actually, I mean, it's not related to this, but we talked about it briefly on the stream the last time. So DC has a new horror imprint. Did that come as a surprise to you?
It did, because I thought we already had Hill House
Right.
for Joe Hill. So this is the second horror imprint, although technically Black Label has also had horror or horror-ish books, horror-related books in it. So this is like the second and a half horror imprint.
Maybe this new horror book tried to get their book done through Black Label, but the editor was eating pizza and missed the mail, so they had to create a new imprint.
It's very possible, but like this, it seems like. I mean, one thing I will say to definitely give DC credit here.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, when doing books, especially that are not related to superhero, the books that DC is doing, it's a good idea for their trade dressing to let people know what genre it is.
Totally. I don't think to make sure my sarcasm is well placed here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having imprints. I think it's fine. I also think a year ago we were all told there are too many imprints and it's confusing, so we're going to get rid of the imprints. And the Hill House books are still. Is that? I mean, is that alive? Not alive? I don't know.
I thought Hill House was still going.
I thought it was still alive too. I was just at a bookstore and saw pretty good trade dress for Hill House trades.
But doesn't James Tynion also have a book that's a horror book with a very long title at DC that's not part of the horror line?
Right. It's just part of, I think it's Black Label.
Yeah. But so why isn't that part of the horror line? I mean, maybe it's possible, since it's not out yet, that they will migrate it there.
The struggle, and sometimes people are like, man, you're really taking it to DC. I think DC has a lot of good things going on. It's like they need somebody to come in over a weekend and be like, all right, we're just gonna organize this a little bit.
Sure. And one thing I'll also add to good things that are happening, that Batman Fortnite pre-order, the hardcover, I think it's a hardcover pre-order.
Yeah.
It made it onto Amazon's top 100 books.
Yeah. Not comics or graphic novels, books.
Yeah. And that's pre-orders. That's money people are spending on a book they are not expecting soon.
Yes. Yeah, that is insane. So that is a huge win for us.
Yeah, and that's the only other comics that were on the top 100 were Dogman.
Yeah, you're playing with Dogman. That's always a sign you're doing something right.
That's outselling manga.
Yeah,
it's selling more than My Hero Academia and One Piece.
It's a pre-order, so it will be short-lived. It's not sustainable, but that aside, it is a win. You take the wins, and I mean, for DC, that's clearly a win. If this is part of Daniel Cherry's, publishing effort to combine things with games, good. I mean, clearly, smart move. It's selling. You're making money. Maybe you make an imprint for comics crossing over with games. I don't know. All this stuff, the round robin, the horror line, all this piece, it all seems like a decent. I mean, there's decent ideas in here. It just seems like there's a problem in execution, which in theory should be solvable. I guess the confusing part is, why isn't it solvable?
Yeah, there's the problem is there's too many things to announce, and they're at the beginning, and then there's so many more things to announce that once the thing is almost out, you forget about it.
Yeah,
and that's a problem. You see this with Marvel all the time. They already stopped promoting the Chameleon Conspiracy, which isn't out yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big problem at independent comics. publishers. You know that again, we're focusing on the big two here for a minute, particularly DC, but small publishers are not without
Oh,
fault.
sure.
How many times have you heard of a book from any of the smaller publishers past the first issue? Like, oh, we're so excited that we got this creative team, and here's the hook, and this is a great look at this, and then you don't hear about it.
Well, I mean, case in point, there was a decent amount of people surprised last week or on Friday when that Berserker #2 is coming out. That book sold very well. The first issue. There's a remarkable drop in hype around what has been Boom's biggest book. I mean, in their history, I think.
I think it might be, yeah, but there's a lot of dropped hype in a lot of things. I mean, speaking of, just talking about DC, what hype is in Batman, Catwoman, and Rorschach right now?
Sure, I agree. It's very odd. And again, in a lot of cases, there's some good comics being put out. There's some good creators, people who are doing interesting things. Or you get Victory. You and I have talked about before. Primer, a book by DC that has done incredibly well with all ages and continues to be on their charts and sell really, really well. It's hard to find that promoted anywhere.
Yeah, and on Amazon, it is outselling every other YA book DC has done. It's consistently outselling The Dark Knight Returns on Amazon.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Well, for about a month, about a month, 6 weeks, it was outselling Three Jokers. It was outselling Doomsday Clock. And I mean, it was the top thing that DC had. It and Three Jokers were kind of battling it back and forth. Again, where's the hype? You have a success on your hands. Why?
Yeah.
And this Fortnite business kind of seems like another case where clearly this is going to do very well for them. But I don't know. It's odd. I'm sorry I went astray from the round robin here.
No, it's good.
Hopefully these other titles, some of the other pitches here that showed some interest. I mean, the Zatanna book, I'm very interested in seeing come to life. I hope someday. I think that's great. I'm interested to see Cena Grace do Green Lantern. I admit, a lot of people. I said this again a couple of weeks ago that Cena Grace was, of course, on Invincible and Walking Dead.
Yeah,
as an editor, I think people have forgotten that bit and they remember him from Iceman at Marvel. So I like. Yeah. I'm excited to see something like this come out and remind people there are other things people do.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of his indie work. I really liked Little Depressed Boy, which he illustrated. I didn't write that one, but Self-Obsessed, and there were some other books he put out, mostly through Image. He's got a wider. He's doing that. He's co-writing that book at Boom right now that's been getting a decent amount of hype.
That's more of a relationship book, as I recall.
Yeah. There was
or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like he did Ghosted in LA first, and then he's doing this one. So like he's got like a range of things he's doing. I've worked with Sienna before. I enjoy him quite a bit. And I've known Ken Marion for many years now. I met him at New York Comic Con 2012. So I met him before he started working at Aspen and then eventually at DC.
I just want to see more people who have. I dislike it, fair or unfair, and it's not. I mean, look, people should go with whatever they're going to be interested in, enjoy reading. But I like it when the creator's full body of work is considered. I think it's too often we see one piece of it that maybe was not the best work. I mean, I suspect if you talk to Cena, for example, himself, he would say that Iceman wasn't his favorite thing that he did. All the other books, and so seeing some of this other stuff, hopefully it's an opportunity to get to that. I don't know. All right, round robin. Well, we'll have to come in here and do this again when we get to the final two in like 3 years, apparently, based on this timeline.
Yeah, we'll have to follow up with that, and it's also great seeing Kilowog in this Green Lanterns book. Created or co-created rather by Joe Staton,
Yeah.
We should talk to him sometime.
Yeah, we should talk to him sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great. He's a great guy. He's he create Huntress with Paul Levitz, like a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
He'd be cool.
I bet you have an interesting thing to say.
Probably would. We should look into that.
Yeah.